welcome to Adult Buddy Finders. I'm Bree Mary.
And I'm Kirsten, and we are here today to talk to somebody who did BDSM and then went into the lifestyle of vanilla or bland, BDSM to bland. I'm not sure how we...
BDSM to not BDSM. We don't really know how to define this.
Yeah.
There's no definition. So basically she has told us that from a young age, she was into BDSM. Our thoughts, ideas, not even really knowing what that meant. And then she meets what she considers the love of her life, who does not want to do BDSM.
Not into it whatsoever. And so they have to work it out and how that works and how they got from BDSM to where they are now.
Yeah.
Which is not BDSM. There might be a little hint there. You'll have to listen and see.
So have you been in a partnership where you felt like you were in love with the person and maybe you didn't feel like sexually compatible in some way?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And I've had multiple relationships where they brought up something sexually where I said, I've never thought of that before. I've never considered it. Or maybe I have thought about it in the past and thought, hell no, never.
Who would do that?
Yeah. I had one guy who brought up, he was actually in a relationship with another woman, and I fooled around with him, and then he brought up that he was in a relationship with another woman.
I think I remember this.
Yes, and he's basically asked me if I was interested in being his mistress, which I forever thought, hell no, never.
Oh, wasn't it an open relationship?
Open relationship mistress? I don't know. What is that called?
A mistress is like a secret.
Oh, it would not be a secret.
According to him, or did you talk to both of them?
I never talked to her. So
okay.
It was according to him.
Okay, so it could have been a mistress.
Yes, could have been. And I really thought about it. Thought about it and came to a conclusion of no, definitely not my thing. I couldn't do it. I had another guy I dated who brought up doing a threesome with two guys, which also is something I was like, I would never ever, don't want to do a threesome. I think it's too complicated and I'm happy with just one person. But he brought it up and I really gave it some thought. We never got too far in the relationship to ever try it out or even come to that point. And that's actually something I talked to him about. I said, I'm open to the idea, but I don't know if I actually would be able to go through with it. And if this is a deal breaker for you, you probably need to get out because my mind may not change. And I don't want you to bank on my mind changing and being into it at some point because I can't guarantee that.
You never know. Yeah, but it's good to at least consider.
Yeah. And it really, when you are really into a person, it does give you a moment to stop and think if that's actually something you would want to do. It kind of makes me, this is bad, but it kind of makes me think about, when people talk about having kids and they're like, well, if you don't want kids, wait until you meet the right person.
Right.
Then you will.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
If you don't want a peg, wait until you meet the right person, and then you will.
Right. It's also like if you are into something, you're like, whoa, it's really cool and fun. You haven't even tried it. You don't know. Like, it's like, who doesn't like pizza? Everyone likes pizza.
Yeah.
Pizza's great. Like chocolate? You don't like chocolate? Oh, you haven't had good chocolate.
Yeah, you haven't had good chocolate. And it's something exciting about hearing somebody you really like being excited about something.
Yeah.
Then it makes it more interesting, more intriguing. What about you? Have you ever had a partner that has sexual drives that you don't?
No. It's always been very, very perfect.
Always met right there. Exactly the same wants, needs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, both ways where it's like maybe the sexual part was great, but the other part ain't. And, where you're like, okay, I love this person. It's not exactly as much as I would like. But you definitely find those things of like, okay, what do I love? What is actually making me happy? And what's wild is as much as we love talking about sex and sex as part of life, it's not all of it.
No.
It's never like, it's like, I mean, it's a little bit. It's honestly like not that much.
And
it's a huge thing that like much ado about it. It's like, you know, it's fun to talk about. Of course we love it. We love talking about it.
Oh, yes, please.
But I mean, even if you're doing it a lot, it's not a lot. It's not like you're not even doing it as much as you're doing your job.
Yeah.
It's not
Or
you're
sleeping.
doing 40. Yeah, exactly.
Or eating.
Yeah.
Maybe eating. If you're a fast eater. And a slow sexer.
Yeah. Could be if you don't eat a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot more to a relationship than just sex.
Yeah.
And finding that middle ground, the compromise where it works.
What do you really want? What do you really want for yourself, for your life, for your partner?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if it's just a very physical thing, I don't know, that doesn't seem to really withstand the test of time.
Yeah.
Because physical things do change. Your body changes.
Oh, very much so. And also your likes and desires of, even we've talked about the nipple biting.
Yes.
And some people didn't want to be bit and now they love it. No one in particular that I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's not specific at all to anyone who's here.
And it is also that partnership of, I don't think I would have enjoyed some of my ex-partners ever going down that route.
Mm.
I think even if, you know, I do like some rough nipple play, I would not want some of my exes to do that. There just wasn't that connection.
Yeah, some people can't bite you at all.
Mm-mm. No. Mm-mm. Keep your teeth to yourself. All right.
Well, I'm excited. I want to hear a little bit more about Hannah.
Me
so
too.
Let's go to her.
All right.
Oh my gosh, we have Hannah.
Woohoo! Yes! Welcome, Hannah.
A little bit about Hannah. She was obsessed with science fiction and BDSM from a very tender age.
She is not the first one either. Rachel Music, one of our dominatrix, was also into sci-fi and BDSM.
You're not alone.
They seem to go hand in hand.
Yes,
So
we'll have
this
to come back to that.
This is not Rachel's. This is all about you, Hannah. So she did some globe trotting, some rat racing, and she found her other half in a town called Brooklyn. It's a little tiny town.
You might have heard of it.
Just a little spot on the map.
She's continuing to globe trot. She's not rat racing. Her and her partner and their perfect son, a German Spitz. What's a Spitz?
It's like any kind of that really poofy dog with the pointy ears and a curly tail.
A German
Is it
Spitz Pomeranian.
Like a
Yes,
bigger
exactly. It's a bigger Pomeranian.
Yes.
The dog just turned 3, or the child just turned 3. I'm sorry about that.
We'll fix that.
She translates science fiction. She's writing a novel and is probably the best Jewish woman longsword fencer in the neighborhood.
Anyone want to challenge her?
Please. Come at me. I'm ready.
So that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, talk fast because we only got an hour.
Actually, our caller is going to be coming up really soon. I didn't realize it's already nearly caller time. But let's get into a little bit like this tender age of BDSM. What tender age was that, and what would that look like?
All right, so this isn't as gross as it sounds, but my earliest memories of childhood include a fascination with what I would now characterize as BDSM.
Okay.
It really was something I almost feel like I was born with.
Okay.
Just in that, I mean, obviously it wasn't like sexual when I was like, you know, before I knew what that was or what those feelings were.
You weren't like a horny little child.
Yeah.
I mean, and more than anyone else was.
No, exactly.
A normal amount of horny.
Exactly. We're all a normal amount of horny. Yeah. No,
Exactly.
So, yeah, I just remember when, you know, being really young, and I just wanted, like, specifically boys to chase me. I wanted boys to chase me.
Yeah.
I wanted them to tackle me, and then
Whoa.
my happiest day was when a boy chased me, tackled me, and tickled me until I almost threw up. And I just had this feeling of, like, absolute joy wash over me of like, this is exactly what I want.
Yes.
And he kind of sensed that it was weird, and he was just immediately like, I'm done, goodbye.
Like this is an elementary school.
Yeah, but
and a boy, and you were like taking it a little too far. It was.
I was maybe very much. Maybe I was just like enjoying it in a way he hadn't. He expected me to be like, no, stop, and I was like, no, stop.
No, do not stop.
Yeah, so
tickle me harder, more.
Exactly.
And he's like, I am a third grader.
So what's a safe word?
Yeah, the safe word is gushers. Oh wait, no, that's gross. I'm sorry, that was too gross.
Best safe word ever.
That is a safe word. That makes me feel very safe.
They were like gold in 4th grade, though.
Yeah, that's
oh my
true.
god, they were.
For trading. Anyway,
That is so
tangent.
true.
But it started very early for me, and
You didn't know what it was, but you knew that you liked some intensity. You weren't.
The attention and then the intensity.
being
Exactly.
restrained specifically
Oh, yes.
was very much being restrained and controlled was like I was definitely a bottom, and it was coming out like pretty early.
Are you into tickle torture or anything? Have you ever tried that?
Not explicitly.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is something that I am getting into with my partner where I do tickle him a lot. And he's very sensitive, and he tells me to stop pretty quickly.
Okay.
And of course I do. But it's, it really, any sort of sensation, I would say, that I can cause to my partner, that my partner can cause to me, that really pushes you to the limit of pain, pleasure, experience, like sensual experience, is, when you can get to a point where you want to say stop, you kind of don't want to say stop, but it's really the limit of experience is to put it in a very Hellraiser-y.
You're like, let me make this scary for everyone.
Well, we are going to be talking to you today specifically from BDSM to, what do we call it? I know that
Vanilla?
Yeah. I like the alliterations like BDSM to bland, but like BDSM to like some people would say a normal sex, which is like our whole show is about what's normal sex, but like maybe more mainstream. Right. So your partner currently, you're not doing the BDSM stuff at all?
Not really.
Okay.
He's, of course, we've been together 8 years. I met him when he was 22. Mm-hmm. And so he was very inexperienced when I met him, and he was also not into BDSM at all. Okay. Meanwhile, I had almost exclusively BDSM experiences.
Yeah.
And there's a big age gap, or?
But yeah, we're 5 years apart. Okay. So at the time, originally, it was kind of a big age gap.
Yeah.
I was a little more settled in my life and way more experienced.
That's a lot of experience time, 22 to 27.
Yeah, that's true.
It's crucial.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens in that 5 years.
Oh yeah, I had been married and divorced. It's a lot. Those early to mid late 20s. That period is so crucial, and that's when I caught him.
Yeah. You're like, I got you. You're mine now.
In my net. Yeah. That is how I feel about him, because I'm very lucky that to have him. But there was that initial sort of tension of, I have something I definitely very clearly want.
Yeah.
And it terrified him when I finally, on like third date, I finally exposed that to him. Like, hey, would you be willing to? And he was like, oh no.
So let's talk a little bit about like the BDSM life. So sure. you were living it before we met this partner, who we'll get into. We'll definitely get to this. But we want to know about BDSM in your experience. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like that was like your first sexual experience. You would classify as BDSM?
Oh yes.
Absolutely. Uh-huh. Did you know what it was?
Yes, at that point, yeah.
So did you do like your research on it? So when you were a kid, you kind of got interested, and then you did your
In third grade, I did a PowerPoint presentation on BDSM.
I would have, honestly. But actually, I had stumbled on a lot of like, it's been particular fiction. I read a lot. I read our science fiction and fantasy section in our library from A to Z.
Okay.
Oh like my entire childhood. Like they could find me just in the SF fantasy section, just reading through everything. And I fell on a lot of really kinky stuff because those sci-fi fantasy writers, they love kinky shit. They love it.
So that does kind of go hand in hand,
really
kink and BDSM. Okay, cool, good.
Weirdly,
and if you're listening and you will listen to science, if you want to read science fiction fantasy, it sounds like you're going to get a lot of BDSM ideas from it.
Oh yeah, Clive Barker.
Clive Barker.
Oh yes, write that down.
Imagica is my favorite. I stumbled upon it way too young.
Yes.
Way too young. It has like the concepts of non-binary and kink, and like it has so many cool like queer and kinky concepts in there for an 11-year-old who has no business picking that book up. And had absolutely no. I didn't have Google at that time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That was going to be my next question. How did you research? Because that wasn't really a thing. You go to the Dewey Decimal System. Like, what do you look up? Interested in tickling until you want to explode with joy.
If only. No, it just took a lot of. Thankfully for me, like it was very prominent in a lot of fiction. It's something that interests a lot of people. To the point where not everybody practices it, but a lot of people are interested enough in it and titillated enough by it that it is fairly easy to find. Again, just reading the entire science fiction section of your library. So.
You read science fiction, probably not initially thinking like I'm gonna learn about BDSM here.
Right. No, I said we were just like our family's very nerdy. I've been reading like Ray Bradbury since I was itty bitty, and just branched out into everything.
That is a great way to expand your world and understand things differently. Reading, just go on and reading.
Absolutely, just picking up, not judging by a cover, just picking every single book up that you find.
Yeah. Okay.
So this has been brought to you by your public library.
Go get your kink on at your library.
We're gonna have your caller actually.
Oh, yes.
We always post questions on our Facebook page. People will write in and they'll ask questions. So we'll get into your actual BDSM sex life when we get off the phone with the caller.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Hello, and welcome to Adult Buddy Finders. This is Kirsten.
And this is Greenberry. Hi, Diane.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great. We're very excited to hear your question.
As you know, we have Hannah on. Hannah is talking to us about going from BDSM to not BDSM. Just no hurting anyone, no pain, all gain. And we know you have a question for Hannah, so please fire away.
Okay, so I've been in a relationship and it's been going really great. I used to be into BDSM and it was like a lot of fun and, my younger years and, past. But now I'm just not so much into it anymore and I kind of want to go the vanilla extract route, super just, sweet, nice, easy on the palate, nothing too, intense. But the guy that I'm with, we used to do it together. And now I just am kind of backing off of it because, first of all, who wants to be tied up at 30 when you're starting to get arthritis and, pains everywhere? It's like nobody needs that extra pain anywhere. Like my back always hurts. I don't need it extra. But anyway, besides the point, it's just I'm worried that, he's not going to be interested as he was because we had a really good thing going. And, I've been watching, I love The Real Housewives. So this past season of The Real Housewives of Potomac, I don't know if you guys are up to speed on it, but I'll just explain. There's this woman named Ashley Darby, and she's fabulous. She's so great. But she's been on the show for a few seasons. Actually, I think it's the beginning. But anyway, so she's been in a relationship with this super wealthy man, and this guy is not, super wealthy or older, but he they had an open relationship And he, they did all this weird stuff together and, everything, or not weird, whatever, to each his own. But then she got pregnant and she had a baby. And then she decided, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And then all of a sudden her husband started pulling away. And then she got pregnant again with her second baby. And then it really went bad and now they got a divorce. So I'm, my question isn't just wondering, like, will it, change things for me as, an Ashley Darby?
You're so sweet to care about Ashley.
As an Ashley Darby, would it, change things for me if I decide, that I'm, completely committed to this vanilla extract version rather than, being in pain all the time?
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. Like that, yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is if the fundamental dynamic of your sexual relationship is changing, is your relationship going to change?
Yeah.
I will say that there were lots of points of tension when we kind of started to realize, like a few years in, like, okay, he's not really going to come around to this. Do I really want? And then I started kind of having those thoughts of like, do I want to stick with this? Do I maybe want to try to open it up and get what I need elsewhere? And ultimately, what we started doing that I think really saved the relationship sexually and romantically was we sat down, we had a really long conversation that was like a checklist. What do you like? What do I like? And what do we both like? And I think you'll find that you already have a bit of a leg up in the situation, in that I think it sounds, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're both very interested in the dynamic, right? Not necessarily the pain and the bleeding and the, the bruises that you can proudly show off. Right, but if you're both, so you're both interested in the dynamic, that like one of you is dominant, the other is submissive, maybe back and forth, however you prefer to do that. If it's the dynamic that gets both of your motors running, that's a head start, because there's so many scenarios that you can come up with. You can get really creative. You're not allowed to, do XYZ until you finish sucking my dick. You're not allowed to, you can't come until you have eaten me out for 20 minutes. And if I feel like you're getting tired, you get punished. And punishment doesn't always have to be pain,
Yeah, so it's more playing with the power.
Yeah,
basically.
it is.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
And no back or arthritis is harmed in the making of your orgasm.
Exactly. And if he's still feeling like getting spanked, you could always,
He can withdraw the pain.
Yeah. But like all drug,
rheumatoid arthritis does run in my family.
Yeah. And pain, it's not fun.
Yeah.
I once so this could be interesting. I once spent a weekend as a BDSM maid, which was like we had written a contract.
Ooh.
And the contract was like, you are going to, you're going to spend 1 hour cleaning the house wearing a butt plug, or this, this and that. And it was like a whole list of his fantasies and mine that I added to it.
Nice.
So we came up with it together, and it was a list of our fantasies of here's what you're going to do all weekend, and you have to do these things or else you get punished. And I would say come up with a punishment that has nothing to do with pain. Like you have to you have to see to his orgasm but don't get your, so things like that, like withholding pleasure or doing services for each other, things like that. So you're still having the domination aspect, and you're still having the control aspect, that delicious dynamic, that I do miss. I will say I do miss. To me, like personally, it may not be your thing, but to me, like that is the core of BDSM is enacting those power dynamics. So maybe that could be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because I was actually thinking maybe, couples therapy or something like that, or, a sex therapist or something.
Yeah.
But, that sounds like a good first step for sure, because then it saves us money.
It does. Sex therapy, we're about to do sex therapy. It's expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It's expensive. But yeah, I would start with that list.
Inflation is a thing.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, start with a list. Like, to have him write down everything you could possibly think of. Get weird. Get creative. Google weird Cosmo lists. Like, those writers come up with some shit.
Oh yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And
Watch
then-
some weird porn together.
And then do you go through and you just like cross things out and you're like, nope,
Yeah.
not for me.
Or
I wrote it.
circle and star, star, star. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great idea. I like it.
Yeah.
Or even while trying those things out, you accidentally just you create a whole new recipe and you're like, wait a minute, this angle is incredible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the service the service idea, because then you could bring in the arthritis, and one of the services could be like massage my sore joints or something like that.
Put my cream on, baby.
Yes. Get some Zorbine Jr. and get it in my joints.
Yeah, so that sounds really good. My only question is what if he doesn't want to meet me that whole way? What if he only wants to meet me halfway? Is that like or maybe not all the way? Would it just be a goner for the relationship, or what do you think about that?
I mean, that's a tough one, because it really comes down to, are you basically sexually compatible after a while? Because what we've discovered, I was feeling a lot of despair. I was feeling like we're never going to be able to make this work. Either that or one of us is never going to be satisfied. And I was feeling like this isn't going to have a future.
Yeah.
And it took really like months of exploration, of being really brave and really vulnerable with each other, and really trying everything like that we could possibly think of. And that's still happening years later. That's still what's happening, is we are trying new things all the time. And so it's like he might not get his top favorite item on the list, but if you could break that item down into what does he like about it, I think you might find, no promises obviously, but I do think it's possible if you break it down to its component parts. What does he like? Does he like watching you have an experience? Does he like the dynamic of being in charge? Does he like, the sensation of what you're doing to him, et cetera, et cetera? Break it into its component parts and see if you can recombine the ones that still work for you.
Oh, okay. So basically getting like the subtext of the action, like the emotion of the action. I see what you mean.
The emotion, the mechanical bits, the positioning, whatever it is, like break it all down. Become like a put on your lab goggles, get out your instruments, your pipettes.
I think also the second part of that is...
I mean, I do have a smartwatch.
Yes. Put that to use.
Yeah.
I think the second part of that also is, what are you okay with and what do you want? If you're not okay with meeting halfway and he's not okay with that, then maybe there's something deeper there that you guys need to explore, or maybe that's just not going to work. So check in with yourself too.
Yeah, that's true. And also because I would like to have children, and I just don't want, I mean, much like Ashley Darby, with the children aspect, it's like, I don't want them to like find things and, kids are curious. Like, oh God, like, they find, Scotch tape or something, and they're like, oh, what, and it's not for wrapping presents. I just don't want them to, I don't want it to bleed off into them.
Yeah.
So, and just like have weird issues, at school and things. So, that's another reason why I'm like, maybe we need to, back off of this, because I am getting older and, the clock's a ticking, even though people say, there are no geriatric pregnancies. I think that's a bold-faced lie. They're still labeled geriatric pregnancies. So I'm getting a little anxious because, children and, the clock is ticking. So it's like, what direction do I go? So there's so many, aspects that go into it.
And to add to what Kirsten was saying, I know from experience that if you are a sub, it can be really difficult to extract your needs from the needs of your dom. that I would caution you to be very aware, especially like, you know, you're going to need to be there for someone else. Like you absolutely need to be there for yourself right now. And so you do need to be, you might need a minute alone even before you go into his list to do your list on your own and say, what is it about our interactions that really sparked joy for me first? Because it might be difficult once you enter into that conversation to disentangle the like, well, I really like being a good sub, you know?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just tough because I've heard other people's stories and, watch a lot of Bravo where people have, even if it's not this BDSM relationship, it's, that a lot of the divorces happen when they start having kids because, the kid takes the top priority and then they fall by the wayside for a while, and some men can't handle that. So it's like, on top of doing the vanilla extract or, meeting halfway, it's like, where do we go from there,
There's a lot of layers for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Start a family.
There's so many layers.
Oh, God, yeah.
Well, hopefully this was helpful, Diane. It sounds like there's like a lot to unpack, and you're even thinking about therapy, and that definitely would be an investment into your future. Either way, if it works out or not, and like you're saying, that clock is ticking for you. So something, time is of the essence.
Yeah, and I do love that you are thinking.
Sure.
I do love that you are thinking about how a kid would fit in with your sexual preferences and your sex life.
Yeah,
I think that's really important. Really important.
Yes, because I've heard many things that it impeccably slows down, and there's a big difference between before and after with kids because it just takes such a priority. So that's a huge concern.
Yeah, and I think that's great to discuss the expectations beforehand, so you know what you're kind of getting into.
Well, hopefully you get to make those babies and you get to have sex the way you want to, and you get to be a success story and a sex story. And thanks for catching us up on the Real Housewives.
Yes.
We're all going to be tuning into Bravo, I think.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your bravery. We always appreciate people that are willing to ask questions. We know it's not easy, and hopefully you walk away with something that'll help your future.
Good luck.
Oh, definitely. It was fabulous. Thank you guys so much for taking my call, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Diane.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I like vanilla extract.
Yes, right?
I was thinking Rocky Road because it's like vanilla with other stuff in it.
Oh, yeah. Wait, there's no vanilla
in Rocky Road?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I never eat it. Cookie dough.
There's no vanilla.
No, it's chocolate with walnuts and marshmallows.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're trying to extract vanilla from that, you might have some trouble, but good luck to you.
All right, we had just started to get into your first BDSM sexual experience,
Yes.
so let's pick that back up and get that question answered.
Yes.
Oh my God. So I had experimented here and there a little bit with middle school, high school. I was like a very horny teenager like everybody. But my first actual where I would qualify my first kind of, truly sexual relationship began was the first thing we ever did together was he tied me to a piano bench and spanked me really hard, and I was like, boom, like fireworks.
How old were you?
I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to wait that long.
But talk about like awareness. I mean, I would not have
I wouldn't have thought that. Yeah, I would be like, penis in the vagina. I'm not even sure how that works.
I'm just rub it together until the fireworks go off.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought too.
Yeah.
But I was thrilled. I was like,
Wow.
I've never been happier at that point.
Oh
Did
my gosh.
you think of it, or did he think of it?
He was a bit older, and he had been in a very long-term BDSM relationship prior.
Okay.
Okay, so he knew
So
what
the
he was
fates
doing.
aligned.
Yeah, fates aligned. He was an excellent first sexual partner. He was a terrible first boyfriend,
Yeah.
but an
That can
excellent
happen. That can happen. Yeah, just because you have a great sexual dynamic does not mean you're destined to be together forever or like you're even good together.
Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes you're a complete mismatch, but they're literally your soulmate.
Sex mate and soulmate can be different.
Yeah, that's so true. And you mentioned before that you identify as a submissive, but it sounds like you had mentioned also that you were a BDSM maid.
Yeah.
So like, did you learn more about domination, or you still think that you're submissive?
In my new relationship, I would say I think I've realized I'm more of a switch.
Okay.
Because I think it's really the dynamic that dictates everything between the partners.
Yeah, I never thought of that before, and you just saying it, at first I was like, dynamic, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, it took me a second to figure out. I was like,
Yeah.
And then when you kind of went into it, I was like, okay, now I'm with you.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. It's not so much about pain necessarily as that power play.
Exactly. And it can have so many shades to it too. It's like, do you want to be physically held down? Do you want them to command you to do things? Do you want there's so many shades to what domination can actually be.
Yeah.
And it's not all hurting each other, and it's not all, I think there is a lot of pushing each other to each other's limits.
Yes.
But those limits have to be very clearly defined for that to be, pleasurable to both parties.
So you were in this relationship, you're getting spanked on piano benches, and did you do like a whole array of stuff with it? Were you with this partner for a while, so you got to really explore being submissive for a while?
For 3 years.
Oh, wow, nice, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you really rode that journey.
Oh, yeah. That was intense. That was when I did the maid for a weekend thing. I did... we did knife play at one point.
Whoa.
What is knife play?
Yeah. It sounds scary.
It's very
Oh,
scary.
it sounds exciting.
It's exciting as hell. Like, I mean, somebody holds a knife to your back and says, like, if you do something or other, I forget what the exact, what we were doing, but it's like, if you mess this up, then I will cut you.
Oh,
a little.
wow.
A little.
Oh,
it's all very controlled.
Oh, yeah. And it's part of the play of knowing that you are safe, but kind of not knowing you're safe.
Exactly. Yeah. If you are into that, it is one of the most exhilarating things you can do, I think.
Yeah.
Very safely.
Right.
Was there any cutting? Did you do any cutting, and did you get off on the cutting?
A little bit, and yes.
That was such an intense yes. I got excited.
So what are some of like the shocking, most fun experiences that you had while you were in the BDSM world?
I mean, that one kind of took I will say it was just, I was with someone who had experience and who had watched literally all of the porns and, had done way more research than I had personally. So there was a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
And having gone to a few clubs as well, and seeing the limits of what the human body can take and derive pleasure from. Like, I don't know if you've heard of the Crown of Thorns.
No.
Well, that's the Jesus thing.
Yeah,
That
that's
means-
that
okay.
wonderful religious thing on Easter when you take hypodermic needles and put them in a ring around the head of your penis and...
What?
Happy Easter!
What?
Sorry, I'm
It's
sorry.
always Easter?
No.
No.
It just was Easter yesterday.
You have to do it on Easter.
Yeah, it's very religious. It
It
was kind of religious because the young man I saw it being done to, the look of ecstasy and transcendence on his face
Yeah.
was so beautiful that like a couple people like cried. It was
Oh, wow.
really beautiful. And,
Wow.
and the woman doing it was doing it so tenderly, which
Oh my
is strange
God.
to say,
It
but
is very
right?
strange to
But you
say
have
those two things.
I thought...
Hypodermic needle, penis head, tenderly. That
Yes.
doesn't seem to go together.
she had her her sanitized gloves, her sanitary gloves on, and she was doing it so gently and making sure she was doing it correctly so as not to permanently injure anything.
Yeah.
And he was smiling. He was beatific. He was barely reacting. He was like on another level.
That word that you used, I
Wow.
don't know it.
Like beatific?
Beatific. Like think of like the Buddha.
Oh.
Like just totally at peace.
I figured. I mean, context clues told me that, but I felt I should get some clarification. Make sure.
Yeah, I'm glad she stopped. I was like, cool, good, keep going.
But it was, that was one of the more intense experiences I was able to witness. That same night, that was the first time I got tied up and whipped by a stranger.
Oh, wow.
Which was a big trust, game.
I feel like that would be a turn on and also could not be a turn on.
No, that's, and when you push so many of your limits, that was kind of the peak of pushing my limits, because I did probably a lot more dangerous, like the knife play, like a lot crazier thing, being choked and things like that with my long-term partner. Yeah. But that I would say pushed my limits the most, was allowing myself to be tied up and whipped by a perfect stranger who was, by the way, I think, lying about his age to get into the club. He was under 21, I think.
Ooh,
they were like college kids. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And so I kind of realized that
18 and older.
He was like 19. He was like 19,
he
but
was
he definitely
20 and a half.
He was 20 and a half. He should not have been in a place where they were serving alcohol. I won't say the name of the place.
Yeah.
So wait, without saying the name of the place, what are these clubs? Like, how do you find them?
I mean, these days, just Google. I think.
What are you Googling? Like, orgasmic clubs?
I think, to be
fair,
play. Yeah. I think a good way to get into it is to clubs like that specifically. I think the way I got into it was there are local clubs who will do classes, like on how to use violet wands, on how to like safely tie someone up, things like that, how to safely play with all of these different toys. Nice. You can look those up, like look up BDSM classes, shibori classes, any kind of class like that. If you go to...
Shibori's the rope thing.
Yeah, they tied up bondage.
Oh.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Now see, I've heard that it's not necessarily like a BDSM thing.
It's not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's beautiful.
It can be an art. There's art galleries with it.
Wow.
Which is...
Ooh, where are those?
There's one in, I believe it's Japan, there's one. And
you just have to travel out of the country.
Yeah, you have to go far, far away from America, get out of here, then you'll find it.
Pretty Puritan here. But it is beautiful. Like, if you get the book, what's her name? She wrote literally the book on the art of shibori, but you Google
You can
the
tell
art of
us
shibori,
later, and we'll put it in our notes.
I'll let you know, and I'll let you know the name of the clubs, too.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because,
show notes, baby.
Because if you go to some of those classes, I know some people get the ick from learning about sex at classes like that.
But that's great, because you're learning about the safety, because what we are talking about can quickly get into the unsafe place, and especially like if you want to play with strangers, you want to know that stranger knows how to play safely, and you know how to get out of it, and it's a-okay, and I don't know, safe words or whatever, or know how to untie yourself real quick or something.
Exactly. Well, and also the club that I was going to, I mean, apart from letting that kid in around booze, he was 19, but like letting him in around booze, apart from that little misstep, it's an extremely safe environment, because it's people who've been doing it all for a really long time, who are really encrusted in that community. Bad word to use, sorry. Yeah. Who are really embedded in that community.
Schmegma.
I'm not going to yuck someone else's yum, but potentially. But smegma fetish, who knows? It's out there. Probably.
If you can dream it, it can be.
Oh, that's beautiful. But it is. I would recommend it if you don't know where to start. In terms of playing, outside of your comfort zone, or maybe even like you have a partner who is a little vanilla extract and wants to be introduced. That's a little bit of intense, but there are places that have kind of varying level, and different parties that have varying levels of intensity.
Yes. And this 21-year-old, this 19-year-old, he could just be a young-looking 21-year-old.
He could have just been, but they were talking about going to Columbia, so he would have been an old junior or whatever.
But you obviously have been drawn to this lifestyle ever since you were a young woman. You lived it, you've got to experience it with different partners in different ways and different evolutions. Then you meet your soulmate, like the person that you have been with for 8 years. Yeah. You love this person, And honestly, you kind of sounded like on this call that maybe you might have thought it was going to be like, cool, you don't like BDSM now, but you don't know how cool it is. Was that true? Did you kind of think maybe you'll change?
I can change you.
Isn't that always like, oh, I can change him.
Yeah.
I can mold him into what I want.
I'll let him see the light.
Yeah.
Exactly. He'll figure it out. I think I did think he would eventually come around to it because of his inexperience.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, he's gonna have like a kink, and we just have to figure out what that is.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
Easier said than done. So it's I had never realized how, because growing up in the Bay Area, I think I may have been a little spoiled in this, but not everyone has a kink necessarily.
Yeah.
Some people just enjoy sex as a way to connect with their partner. And
Yeah.
that was novel to me.
Just the old-fashioned in and out.
Maybe not quite that boring, but yeah, that's also great. But no, it really was like it became an exercise. I thought I was teaching him, but he was teaching me.
The student has taught the teacher.
Exactly.
I think that's a good partnership, though.
Yes.
Teaching each other and finding that of what you both like, and the compromise of finding where you are, whether that's in the middle or maybe you do go a little bit more to one side or the other, depending on what your likes are.
Exactly. And from there, in that exploration of where is the middle, that's where the fun starts happening.
Yeah.
Because that's where we start to say, oh, I really liked that. Let's explore that. You know, kind of what we were talking about with Diane, where you start dissecting things. Well, why did you like that? It might not always be the sexiest thing in the world, but oftentimes if you do have that conversation for long enough and keep breaking into component parts, it does get sexy. It comes back around to getting sexy again, because you're like, oh, I really like it when you hold me down, you know, and, you know, or I really like it when, you know, the sensation is too much for you to bear, and you know, you're about to come, and you know, whatever it is, it is so important for us to continue talking about it and finding where the middle ground actually is.
Yeah. So do you do like a list like you were talking about, and then basically do you keep checking in every, I don't know, few months or something, or how do you do that to see the progression of where your sexual journey is going together?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's like it's kind of a process where we start trying something, we find something that works, and then we kind of do that until it gets boring. And then we sort of revisit, you know, and it's like when I realize that I'm starting to fantasize about like BDSM again, and I realize, oh, okay, now I'm getting a little bored.
Yeah.
And now we need to start exploring something else. And that process has been really helpful, because it's helped me to sort of find because when I say like, oh, break it down to its component parts, it sounds easy. It's not necessarily that easy.
Oh, none of this stuff is easy. We talk about that constantly, where we're like, yeah, just have a talk with your partner. Just have, you know,
which is the most difficult thing in the world. It's like, so it's such a complicated thing to even like, okay, I know how I'm feeling, and now I have to tell you how I'm feeling in a way that like doesn't hurt anyone, and it's not easy, but it is like it is the simplest thing, but it's the most complicated thing.
Oh yeah.
And he's even said a couple times like, thank you for hurting my feelings
Okay.
that time, because like, yeah, it hurts in the moment when you say like, I'm not happy. Like, yeah, my pride is wounded, of course, but he has literally said, thank you for doing the hard thing, hurting my feelings, breaking this open so that we can progress from there instead of just staying unhappy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if your partner really loves you, if they really care about you, then wounding their pride a little bit shouldn't be the be-all end-all for them.
Right.
As long as it can help you both progress to a place where you can both be happy.
See, he does like pain for pleasure.
I think too, like the thing is Diane brought it up. Every relationship changes, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's not the extreme of like I was like performing a pretty extreme sex act and now I don't want to do that anymore. Just talking about like if you get married or if there's children involved, there's and time like. There is, no matter what you're doing, you were in a relationship for 3 years, I'm sure, like, they're even, like, as wild as it got, there's probably times that you're like, oh, I saw this coming.
Oh, spanking, that's novel. Yeah.
The old knife in the back trick. Hurts the same.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you can have the reality of the reason why it's hard, the hard thing is the easy thing, which is talking to each other, asking each other questions, and hurting each other's feelings a little bit sometimes, and being like, okay, well, what you're saying isn't that I'm boring, and understanding that you're just asking for something, and being open to it.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is, you're the person I want to explore this with. And I'm so committed to that I'm going to tell you the truth and be vulnerable, and because I want this to work. And I think it's like we're really staying in that space. We've been very good about staying in that space of like, this is so that we can keep working. Yeah. Because we love each other so much.
Yeah. And that of like, I'm not happy, but I want to be happy with you. And so let's work it out. Even though that does kind of hurt to hear, I'm not happy with what's going on.
Oh, that's never good to hear.
Yeah, it always sucks. But
you gotta find words. Where does that work?
Yeah.
Because I like to be like, I'm bored and I'm fantasizing about other people when I was doing BDSM stuff. It was totally, you should have seen these big old dildos.
This ex that I had, I'm thinking about him now. Even though he's horrible, but wow, he could spank.
You should have seen our bedroom. It was wild. This is so bland and boring.
Oh yeah, back to you. So our relationship.
You're the one I love, though. It's not like anything. Like, there's ways to say what you're feeling without being like, oh, I had this weird dream that really, like, we've all had weird dreams or like weird thoughts. Like, thoughts aren't things, and you don't have to like give them life and make them like, oh my gosh, I fantasized or I thought about my ex that I don't want anymore, but I had this dream about him and I must be a pervert or I must be like horny for him, and you don't need to share that.
No, and that's just a thought you can let go. You don't have to obsess over it and be like, that means I'm still in love with him. Oh no. It just is a thought that goes through your head and you can let it go.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And he's been let go for
quite
a while.
Yeah. The exes are exes. That's where they live. In the X land.
In X land.
And something else that you're saying too that really pops out to me is basically you guys are secure. And so you know that you can talk about this stuff because you know you're going to work it out together. And I think that's huge in a relationship, especially when exploring different sexual desires, of knowing that you guys are there for each other no matter what your sex path is going to be.
Exactly.
This. Dear reader, if your partner does not make you feel safe to express yourself, that's wrong. But that's the bottom line, is that we feel safe with each other. Yes. It's we never feel like we're going to say something like, if I say like, I wish I could peg you so badly. I know he's not going to be like, too intense, goodbye. He'll be like, too intense for now.
Yeah. Let's see what else we can do. Maybe the wall can peg you. We'll get one of those suction cup dicks.
But that's the other thing, that he's been really good on his side by saying, I've been compromising on my side, saying like, I'm gonna go really slowly with you, and he's good on his side by saying, let's put a pin in that. Yeah. And I'm not gonna say no. I'm not gonna say no forever. Yeah. But let's explore that later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think what's interesting too is it is trying something new. It's the same thing, but it's the reverse of what you think. Most people think like, okay, well, I'm doing the missionary position, and now I'm gonna put on a bondage suit, and I'm gonna be tied up and tie me to a bed, and I'm gonna do lingerie. Like, people think that it goes in that direction, but it can go in any direction. It can change in any way, and this is just an evolution of your sex life.
Wow. Yeah. Super well put. It's so true. People do seem to think we love like a narrative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Escalation.
Yeah. It's what is it? Teleological or whatever, where we love like a beginning, middle, and an end. Yeah. And you're right that I'm not going backwards.
No.
Yeah. By trying my cookie dough ice cream, vanilla chocolate chips.
Yeah, just picking out all the cookie dough.
It's like a completely different flavor for me, and it's been a massive exploration for him, but also for me in discovering what does it mean to just strip it all down and just be bare-souled, me and my partner. And that's been challenging.
Right.
And it made me realize that there was a lot of work I hadn't done.
Yeah.
You know, that I was kind of maybe masking behind a lot of the BDSM stuff.
Masking.
Very eyes wide shut lesson here.
I think that's great though. I mean, it is self-work too, and I think a lot of sex stuff is you gotta first work on yourself. All relationships, work on yourself first. We've heard it all, but it's true.
Totally. It's so true. It's so true. And you are allowed to work on yourself alongside.
Yeah.
If you have a partner who is safe and supportive, and you know, and you are being kind to yourself and your partner.
Yeah, and you can work on yourself while he works on himself, while you guys watch each other working on yourselves.
Hell yes!
It can be sexy.
Well, listener, you heard it here. Work on each other, work on yourselves. It's all work, but hopefully it's fun work. Do what you love and you never work a day in your life.
Aww.
Thank you, of course, Hannah, and thank you, listeners. We are always very thankful if you're watching, if you're listening. We really appreciate you. Couldn't do it without you, or I guess we could, but we probably wouldn't.
But that wouldn't be as fun. We like people watching and listening.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And also, if you are looking for any of the books that Hannah mentioned, or clubs, or any of that other juicy information we got, go to the show notes down below and you will find all of it there.
Yes. Details. Hey, you guys have been Patreoning our Patreon, and we love you for it. We're going to give a special thank you to Mr. Matt. Thanks, Matt, for being a patron of our Patreon. We really couldn't do it without you.
Yes, thank you so much, Matt. And also, thank you, Laura. You are helping us out, and we are loving it.
Loving it, living for it. So, y'all know Hannah is our guest. Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the juicy details you shared.
Thank you for having me. And I was an excellent sub. If you'd like to be an excellent sub, don't forget to subscribe.
Oh, yeah. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Be a sub by subscribing.
Yeah, and even if you're dominative, you can subscribe.
We'll allow it.
Subscribe. Basically, all we care about is that you download the podcast. It helps us.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you.
That's our show. Goodbye. Harmonize. Goodbye.